Welcome to the No Sugarcoating Podcast. I am Amber Romaniuk, emotional eating, digestive, and hormone expert. I am also the founder of amberapproved.ca. I support professional women achieve optimal health through mindful eating, self-care, and overcoming self-sabotage with food. This podcast provides the honest truth on what you really need to create body freedom. The No Sugarcoating Podcast provides information on healthy living, lifestyle changes, nutrition, and diet, and is intended for informational purposes only. Always seek the advice of your healthcare practitioner regarding your health and nutrition program. Hello, everybody. Happy episode 176 of the No Sugarcoating Podcast. This week I'm talking about this continuation, this theme around digestion, physical and emotional signs of digestive imbalances. I am talking about understanding digestive health and bowel movements, digestive imbalances and skin issues, and how digestive imbalances fuel food cravings. So this is really fun to be exploring this digestive theme. I'm going to dive into the show notes because they're just sweet and simple and to the point, and then we'll get started today. So the show notes for today's episode can be found at amberapproved.ca/podcast/176. A friendly reminder to subscribe to the No Sugarcoating Podcast on all podcast apps. You can also click the link in the show notes to subscribe, and you can go to amberapproved.ca/podcast to listen to all episodes. Are you curious if you're struggling with emotional eating? I know that's a huge theme of my podcast, and it is a big part of my expertise. So I have created an emotional eating quiz and an emotional eating video series on my website. So you can click the links for both of those in the show notes to go through, answer some key questions. It'll help to give you some insight as well. The emotional eating video series walks you through showing you the struggles I used to have, what I used to binge on, and some signs and ways that we can start to understand if we're struggling. Last but not least, make sure you are following me on Instagram, as this is where I share a lot of health tips, emotional eating inspiration, recipes, Instagram stories, lives, giveaways, and other content. Again, that's at Amber Romaniuk, and make sure that you say hello. Thank you for all the reviews and ratings that you guys are leaving to support the podcast. If you would like to support the show, you can do so by leaving a review or a 5-star rating or both. On your phone or computer, you go to podcasts and search for the No Sugarcoating Podcast. Even if you're subscribed to me, you'll need to find the show in this way. Once you're on my main page, you can click on reviews, write a review in purple, give me 5 stars if you like, or write a little something. Or you can go to amberapproved.ca/review, and it will take you to the page where you can follow the steps that I've just shared. You can submit questions to nosugarcoatingpodcast@gmail.com. I just please ask that questions are no more than 150 words in length, as health histories need more support, and one-on-one coaching will probably be a better fit. If you are finding a specific eating style isn't working for you, you're struggling with emotional eating, food addiction, digestive issues, inflammation, potential hormone imbalances, your self-care continues to be a problem, you are last on your priority list, you're overwhelmed, you're struggling with your weight, and you have no idea what to do, well, my friends, you are in the right place, because I am going to continue to talk about these topics, diving into the habits and mindsets to set you on a different path. So as I've mentioned, I'm continuing the theme of digestion and your health, and I'll be exploring 3 new symptoms today, which are very common ones that I see a lot of my clients struggling with, that I used to struggle with, and how different emotional and physical factors affect these digestive symptoms. So as I mentioned last week, I'm sharing a series of podcasts that are about digestive and hormone health coming up in the next few weeks, and how that pertains to your emotional and physical health, your hormones, your cravings, your blood sugar, weight, emotional eating, and more. I really believe your digestive system is such a valuable and important part of the body, and it's so important to have balanced digestion to support optimal health. As I mentioned last week, the digestive system is often referred to as the second brain and is a huge part of your immune system. So I'm going to dissect some of the most common and uncomfortable symptoms that my clients and I used to, and that a lot of people struggle with. Pause the podcast and go grab a piece of paper so you can take some notes and write down anything that you feel like you're relating to and that you're struggling with these symptoms and how they may resonate with you. And if you feel like you have been struggling with digestion or hormones or any of these things for a while and you can't get to the root of it, then this may be a great opportunity to reach out and send me an email at info@amberapproved.ca and get support. it's important to understand why you're struggling with what you are and to get the help that you want. And I know there's a lot of noise and information out there and it can get really confusing. So sometimes it's nice to get help from someone that you really connect with. Amber Approved offers private coaching for hormonal imbalances, weight loss and digestive issues, emotional eating, and more. Contact Amber at amberapproved.ca to book your 30-minute complimentary consultation today. So let us, without further ado, go to the first symptom. So digestive health and bowel movements. Yes. Bowel movements. So fun. I know you're all super pumped to hear me talk about this and to talk about poop, but it's so important and it's such an important part of a healthy body and a healthy digestive system, and absorbing and so many different things. And as a whole, I really feel like the digestive system is representative of you digesting life. So the way you digest life, I really think is tied to your digestive health. And what I mean by digest life is how you take life in. Are you always stressed about life? Are you always in a negative mindset? Are you hanging on to everything? Are you holding grudges? Do you think everyone's out to get you and you're emotionally eating and you don't like your body and so you're really struggling to digest life? Or do you digest life with ease and flow and you go with the flow and you're happy with your life and you're in a positive mindset? You're happy with who you are. I often find that people have struggles with bowel movements when they're really feeling in a negative place in their lives, and I'll talk more about that shortly. So do you have a bowel movement every day? Do you not have a bowel movement every day? Do you have more than one bowel movement a day? Do you only have one bowel movement a week? I really believe it is so important for everybody to be having at least one bowel movement a day, and that it's not really loose and you're not constipated, that it's nice and formed. That is important. A lot of people are having loose stools and a lot of people are very constipated, and these can be signs of different imbalances going on in the body. But it is important that we have at least one bowel movement a day. Some people say a meal in, then a meal should come out. I think that there's different ways to look at it, but I think the key is to be having those daily bowel movements and that you are supporting your body in different ways, of course, with nourishing your body, sleep, mindful movement, hydration, just ways to support your overall health. And the more we have balanced health, the easier it is for your body to have a healthy digestive system. So let's look at some of the most common physical reasons why you may not be having regular bowel movements. One of the first ones is you're not eating enough. So I work with a lot of people who have been in restrictive mindsets because of different, restrictive diets, been told you need to eat less and exercise more. They're quote unquote too busy. So they're not eating and taking a lunch break. They're skipping breakfast. And so when we don't eat enough, that can be a really, really easy way to get constipated because you're probably not getting enough fiber. Your body is finding it difficult to move through a good load of fiber. So when fiber is moving through the body, it's the main binding agent that binds toxins, excess cholesterol, and just other junk and things that your body doesn't need. And that pulls to the fiber in your bowel movement, and then you eliminate that. So when you're not having a bowel movement every day, you're reabsorbing a lot of toxins. People have a lot of brain fog, low energy, and just don't feel very well. You feel really full and it's really uncomfortable and it's just not fun. So not eating enough makes it really easy to have slow bowels. Another really easy way to get constipated is by not drinking enough water. A lot of people are very constipated because they're drinking a lot of coffee, energy drinks, pop, sugary drinks with aspartame, but they're not getting enough water. So if you are not getting your 8 to 12 glasses a day or your 2 liters or your 68 ounces, I highly would encourage you to increase your water intake because it's a huge reason why I see people become constipated. And that has a huge impact on your energy levels, as I've mentioned. So making sure that you're drinking enough water is important. Getting enough fiber. So you get fiber from your fruits and vegetables, your nuts and seeds, your whole grains. So quinoa, brown rice pasta, buckwheat, amaranth, things like that. I'm gluten-free, but I don't necessarily tell everyone else to be. But again, your really good whole grain toasts and things like that, things that make you feel good. We need to have enough fiber again to essentially have that push through the body and the intestines and leave the body. So we want to ensure that you're having enough fiber. I always encourage people, make sure you're having some kind of fiber with every meal. So it could be a fruit, a vegetable, primarily like the most vegetables, I would say, but a couple pieces of fruit through the day, and whatever kind of, I love sweet potatoes, so I have a lot of that with spaghetti squash, and we'll have like brown rice pasta. So it's really whatever you like, but picking a variety of different foods. Emotional eating and restriction can contribute to unhealthy bowel movements, and that's because here we are eating way too much, and then we're diving into restriction. That can create a lot of inflammation in the digestive system. The more inflamed the intestines are, usually it can feel the more constipated you may be. So for me, as an example, I used to binge on a lot of gluten and wheat products, and then I'd get really constipated, and that's because gluten is the inflammatory protein in things like wheat, and that really inflames the intestinal wall. And so this gluten is essentially like sticking to your intestinal wall. And then what ends up happening is it's really a slow move for that to move through the body and leave the body. So it can really slow down digestion and slow down assimilation and absorption and your body's ability to release that. So for some people, things like gluten can really constipate them. And then for some people, things like dairy can give them really loose stools. So different food sensitivities can also create constipation or loose stools and impact healthy bowel movements, again, because of inflammation. The body's trying to get this foreign invader out of the body. And so it does so by trying to get it out as quickly as possible. That's why some people will eat something and then they're having to go to the washroom right away, because the body is like, nope, this is not food. I don't know what to do with this. I'm having a reaction. I need to get this out of the body. But going back to the emotional eating and restriction. So when you overeat and then you eat processed foods, it's a massive inflammatory load on the body, and it's also a big stressor. And then when you go into restriction and you're not eating enough, again, the volume isn't there. And if you're not getting the volume of fiber that you need and healthy fats to help, again, the bowels move along, it can really stress out your digestive system. And not only that, but your hormones, which I'll talk about shortly. But it's like everything is connected. And so when we have a big stressor like emotional eating happening, it's not only impacting the digestive system and your bowel movements, it's impacting your gut flora, your blood sugar, your hormones, your energy levels, your mood. And of course, it doesn't feel good when you've eaten so much that you're so full that it's uncomfortable. And that makes people want to take things like laxatives or want to purge or, want to starve and only drink water to try to fix it. But the breakdown with doing things like that is we're actually not being kind and gentle with our bodies, and we're actually not taking responsibility for the sabotage we've just put our body through if we're quick fixing through fasting and laxatives and purging. So we actually want to own and take responsibility with any emotional eating or binge eating and get support to overcome that so that you're not always feeling so full and uncomfortable and then feeling like you have to restrict. Sometimes high protein, high fat diets can create constipation because there's not necessarily much fiber, especially in animal protein and some fat sources. I'm all for protein and fat. I think it is important, though, to have a good balance of healthy carbs, which includes your fruits and vegetables and your rices and your quinoas and all that kind of stuff. I don't believe in restricting any one food group at all. I think there's a lot of fad diets out there right now that are very restrictive and very extreme, and they don't support, in my opinion, it's just my opinion, but they don't necessarily support our health and well-being. So if you're on a high-fat protein diet and you're noticing that you're not having good bowel movements, then that may be one of the reasons why. Let's talk a little bit about gut flora imbalances. So when you have an imbalance of unhealthy bacteria, as I've talked about, so that candida or that yeast, that can, again, contribute to inflammation in the intestines, and that can either slow down or speed up bowel movements, again, constipation or having bowels be too loose. Often, again, if we're having issues with bowel movements, we're not absorbing our nutrients properly, and that can lead to deficiencies of vitamins and minerals. And it can also lead to hormone imbalances, or hormone imbalances can contribute to these slower, fast stools. So I often find if people have sluggish, underactive thyroid, one of the most common signs is constipation. Thyroid and digestion are largely tied together, and your thyroid is a huge part of your metabolism. And if you are noticing you're not hungry, you have cold hands and feet, you're losing hair, you're gaining weight, or you're struggling to lose weight, and your bowels really slow down, that's very tied to the thyroid. When I first had thyroid imbalances, I got very constipated, and I'm like, what the heck is going on? And I was right away able to tie it to my thyroid and started to support my thyroid right away. And now I notice the only time that I have a change in bowels is if I'm emotionally hanging on to something, again, as that large intestine represents hanging on or letting go. And I'll talk more about that shortly. But the thyroid and underactive thyroid can create more constipation. Overactive thyroid, which is the thyroid is too active, that can contribute to more loose stools, feeling warm and kind of wiry and jittery. It's like caffeine high. So thyroid can play a huge role with bowel movements, and so can your cortisol level. So cortisol is the stress hormone. And again, for some people, when that cortisol is elevated or too low, because there is such a big fight or flight response going on, you can experience more bloating. You feel more sensitive to more foods. And again, it can go their way. Some people have more loose stools, again, because the fight or flight in the body's trying to get rid of everything out of the body to eliminate any foreign invaders. Or some people will create constipation because they're in a high stress mode and they want to hang on. They want to hang on to the past or hang on to whatever the scenario is. They're not ready to forgive it or let it go. So definitely hormones can play a role. Food sensitivities and inflammation. So if we eat things we're sensitive to or allergic to, and you start to feel puffy, bloated, that's a sign of inflammation in the digestive system. And that's a sign that your body's going, whatever you just gave me, I'm not happy with. And it usually wants to get it out of the body as quickly as possible. So that can impact having looser stools or diarrhea. And for some people, again, it really slows things down, especially if I'm gluten, corn. Some people it's rice, will really constipate them, and that can be tied to food sensitivities. Also, if you're not absorbing or breaking your fats down properly, or you don't have a gallbladder, your gallbladder isn't producing bile. Bile helps bowels to slide nicely through the body. So if that's off and your liver is out of balance, and your liver's really clogged up and just like, oh my gosh, if you've never, had lemon water, just eaten green vegetables, the liver could be really stressed out. And the more stressed the liver is, the more that impacts your digestive system and your abilities to have regular daily bowel movements. So there's quite a few pieces here on the physical level. There are more, but I just wanted to highlight some of those key ones for you today. And then from an emotional standpoint, I often find, again, when people are emotionally hanging on to the past, I find a lot of my clients hang on to, oh, I wish I was the weight I was a couple years ago. Oh, if only I could be the way I was a couple years ago. Or they're hanging on to, grudges or just, interactions with the people. They're not willing to let go of those. Again, that large intestine represents being able to have the ability to let go. And when we're hanging on emotionally, sometimes the bowels represent then hanging on and you have more constipation. The higher your stress levels are, the poorer your sleep, tightness and constriction in your body, the more tight and constricted you feel, potentially the more likely that you may feel constipated versus the more relaxed you are. Like I often find people, even me, like you go for a good massage or just like a really good self-care treatment. And then it's like, oh yeah, now I have a great bowel movement, right? It does help to relax the body and the bowels. So, one of the keys here is to support your body by doing self-care, getting good sleep, drinking enough water, and eating a nourishing variety of different foods, including a lot of fiber, and of course your good fats and proteins. But it's important to bring in balance with food, and eating regularly through the day and not restricting is going to help with that. So if you're struggling with emotional eating, if you're struggling with restriction, again, there is a great opportunity to reach out and get support so that you can clear that massive stressor out of the way, because it is a really big stressor that I see contributing to a lot of people's digestive issues, hormone imbalances, cravings, low energy, weight issues, etc. The No Sugarcoating Podcast is proud to partner with Dr. Segal's Energy Socks. Dr. Segal's makes fashionable compression socks for the effective relief of tired, achy, swollen legs. Visit drsegals.com and choose from a variety of styles. Dr. Segal's compression socks are truly socks with benefits. And that brings me to my second symptom, which is digestive imbalances and skin issues. So whether it's psoriasis, eczema, breakouts, skin breakouts, acne, pimples, rosacea, often I find this largely stems from the gut. I've had a lot of clients with all of these different imbalances. And even me, I used to really break out on my chin, like on the sides of my chin. And that's actually directly correlated to intestinal health, yeast imbalances. And that's something that I struggled with for a very long time. And once I really sorted that out, I stopped breaking out there. But again, I often really believe that inflammation starts in the gut. And while chemicals and skincare cleaning products and lotions definitely can flare up skin issues, a lot of it, is also internal. So some people have skin issues because they don't absorb their fats properly, and that impacts your abilities for the fats to really help hydrate your skin. Or if you have certain nutrient deficiencies, if you're not drinking enough water, that can impact your skin, dry skin, flaky skin, and different kinds of breakouts. I find a huge stressor for skin issues is candida, or that yeast imbalance. So I see people with eczema, rosacea, lots of inflammation with the skin, again, those breakouts under the chin. So if you're having a yeast imbalance on the inside in your large intestine, and then you're noticing that you have funguses, toe funguses, athlete's foot, for females it may be yeast infections, guys it may be jock itch, you're noticing that you're itchy under your armpits or just in like the crevices, your elbows, this can all be signs of yeast trying to leave the body, or that there's a high level of yeast going on in the large intestine. And then things like eczema and psoriasis and rosacea, that's an external sign of inflammation coming from the internal. So I really believe if we take the time to balance the gut flora, look for food sensitivities, hydrate the body, rest the body, calm the inflammation down in the body, it can really help to resolve a lot of these skin issues that people are struggling with. And again, any chemically laden products. I've had clients who had really itchy, dry skin, and they had to change their fabric softener, or they had to, stop using a lotion they were using because it was just loaded with chemicals, and it made a huge difference. So part of it is about what we're putting in our body and our digestive organs. And the other thing is, what's going on in our body on the outside. Now, remember, your skin is your largest organ, and it absorbs in about 25 seconds whatever you put on it. So it's very, very fast. So everything from stomach acid imbalances to liver imbalances to gut flora imbalances, food sensitivities, heightened inflammation can all be signs of other physical things that may be going on that are impacting your skin. Hormone imbalances, again, can also be tied to this. High stress, poor sleep, right? Because these are all stressors to the body, and the more stressed your body is, the more inflamed your body becomes, and that inflammation impacts your digestion, it impacts your skin, it impacts your immune health, it impacts your hormones. So it's like a domino effect, and these are things that we can mindfully balance. It's just that it takes time to do so. From an emotional standpoint, and I always find this very interesting to talk about, I often find that, again, a lot of the skin irritations that we see externally are red, right? So inflammation shows up in the signs of redness, swelling, pain, and heat. And oftentimes people say, oh, it's itchy, it's red, it's warm, it hurts. And so when we look at inflammation and emotions, inflammation is about seeing red. It's about anger, frustration, and irritation. So I always like to ask people, are you regularly angry, frustrated, or irritated? Louise L. Hay often talks about how pimples are tiny outbursts of anger, right? So if you're often experiencing these symptoms, or you notice that when you are experiencing those, your skin gets worse, your digestion gets worse. When you're more stressed, these symptoms flare up. When you eat certain foods, they flare up. When you're, again, not hydrated and you're making poor food choices, or emotional eating is kind of leading you, this can all make symptoms flare up, and they can seem to just be getting worse and worse and worse no matter what you do. But that's often because we need to go inside, see what's going on physically and emotionally, and address both the emotional and physical symptoms, not just one. And it's not just about taking one pill or just putting some cream on it or going on a load of antibiotics. Some people may believe in doing that, but I really believe it's about going in and looking at the roots as to why it's happening, and putting a lot of really good things into the body, and taking the time to do the self-care and slow down and de-stress and take care of yourself. Again, the body does not thrive off of stress. The body does not thrive off of coffee and energy drinks to survive off of, and packaged foods. It's not about having to eat perfectly and take care of yourself perfectly, but it is about some form of balance. And I find most people are not making themselves a priority, and they're not taking the time to understand their body's symptoms and why they're struggling with these symptoms. And instead, people get frustrated and angry. Oh, well, now I have this acne or this eczema and I don't look good and I'm embarrassed. And we reject our bodies when our body is just trying to communicate with us and go, hey, I have these symptoms, I'm trying to get your attention. Are you willing to look? Are you willing to pay attention and take some action to help me resolve this? Because it's just, I think, such an empowering thing that us as human beings have these body symptoms, and we can, by this means of communication that we have with our body, either pay attention or ignore it. And when we ignore it, it gets worse and worse and worse. And it can develop into some very serious imbalances and illnesses, I believe, if we do not pay attention. So, and some of these things are very common, and we see them in all the areas, right? Like lack of self-care, stress, poor hydration, not eating enough fiber, gut flora imbalances. They're so common, yet not acknowledged enough, I don't feel. So that's why I'm bringing this all to the table. The last symptom, cravings, especially sugar cravings. Okay, digestive imbalances, fueling food cravings. So I often find people crave sugar and carbs because their blood sugar is out of balance. This can be because they're not eating regularly enough, they're dehydrated. There can be hormone imbalances, especially cortisol. When cortisol is too high or too low, again, that's your stress hormone. It throws your blood sugar off. It can make you more hungry, crave sugar. Again, if you have consistent low energy, if you have a low B12, which is the energy vitamin, that can also throw your blood sugar off and make you crave sugar. A huge one is gut flora imbalances. So I often find that people with high levels of yeast or candida crave a lot of sugar and carbs. And that's because carbs and sugar and yeast are the primary food sources of yeast. So it makes you crave those things so that it gets fed, so that it grows and it doesn't want to die. I had the worst sugar and carb cravings, and when I was trying to get rid of my yeast, it was debilitating because I'd have such bad cravings, and I'd so badly just want to go and eat all the sugar and all the carbs because of the cravings and the emotional eating. So it was very interesting, and now I have no cravings for anything. And to me, it's just always such a good sign for my clients or for people when they say, yeah, I have no cravings, or I crave salad or an apple or something that is actually of whole foods. So often, the more balanced the body is, the less cravings you're going to have. Low energy and poor sleep throw your hunger hormones off. And so we produce ghrelin to make us hungry and leptin to make us full. And what ends up happening is if we're tired and we have different hormone imbalances, we may produce more ghrelin to make us hungry and less leptin to make us full. So you may feel like you just could eat all day. People who skip breakfast, who wait too long between meals to eat, this throws the blood sugar off. This makes us have more cravings, and this actually also can set people up to binge more later in the day. So I find mid-afternoon and evening are very vulnerable times for people to go into emotional eating, and it's often because they have not had a good sleep, or they've not drank enough water, they've not had their regular nourishment through the day, and it does impact and make a huge difference when that's happening regularly. And not eating enough, I find most people just don't eat enough. There's fear around, oh my gosh, well, if I eat more, I'm going to gain weight. I don't have time to eat more. I don't have time to take my break. But it's like, okay, well, you don't have time, but you want to be here and have your health for a long time. So where's the happy medium? Your body needs you to fuel your body to support your health, your well-being, to get vitamins and nutrients and minerals and proteins and fats and all the great things that we need to function. So I would highly encourage you to start with a small shift, like scheduling your lunch break, taking snacks, eating mindfully, because often when people start to make those kinds of changes, the shifts that they see with their symptoms are profound, even just from a couple of small action steps. And then from an emotional standpoint, often I find emotional eating fuels sugar cravings more because people are eating lots of carbs and sugar, and there can be this addictive like tendency, and then it just makes you feel like you lose control with it all the time. That can be resolved. Restriction and under eating can fuel your cravings because you're not eating enough and your body is starving and needs the food and needs the calories. High stress, so the higher your stress levels, that impacts your blood sugar, it impacts your whole system, and your body just gets to the point where you get so hungry that you just want to eat everything, and then we don't make good choices. And that fuels more cravings. And this, again, comes down to lack of self-awareness, not being in tune with the body, not taking the time to take care of ourselves. So a couple of the key things here, again, are to schedule self-care, to slow down while you eat, shut off technology, take your lunch break, focus on chewing your food slowly, and focus on enjoying your food. Drink enough water, get enough sleep. Those are things I would highly encourage you to start with. And if you feel like you have a lot of digestive struggles and you can relate and you're like, I'm doing those things and nothing is helping, then that's where I always encourage people to dig deeper and perhaps get some support to do so, whether it's connecting with me or someone that you're already in conversation with. Getting support helps you to take your power back and have freedom from those symptoms within your body so that you can have a more enjoyable, happy, peaceful life because all these symptoms are not nagging you all the time. The shifts that I see with my clients when we start working on their digestion are profound. And it's not just, physical recommendations. It's also working on the emotional and the stress, because I find a lot of digestive symptoms really are, made bigger and more pronounced with stress and not taking the time to make yourself a priority. So I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. The show notes can be found at amberapproved.ca /podcast/176. Remember, there's no better time than the present to take action on your health and your digestion. So take action now. Have a wonderful week. Enjoy the beautiful weather. And I will look forward to sharing a whole new podcast with you next Sunday. Thanks so much for listening to the podcast. If you haven't yet, be sure to subscribe, review, and rate this podcast and share it with your friends. You can find me at amberapproved.ca and follow me on Instagram and YouTube at Amber Romaniuk. Join me next Sunday for another brand new episode and another step toward body freedom.